How are we doing out there?
By the way, don't buy Barilla. Barilla! Don't buy their pasta.
Pasta.
Don't like Ronnie towels either, they're cookbooks.
Next, ask Roger Harris to come up. He's the field organizer or something like that for the AFL-CIO. Field staff. I'm going to give you a big promotion.
You were the shortest.
He's going to give us greetings from Victor Sanchez, the newly elected Secretary of the AFL-CIO here in Central Florida. And Victor also has a prepared statement. He has a friend in the hospital, and he was not able to make it this evening.
home if
He's prepared a statement. It's very short.
home with you.
Roger's going to take care of it. And Victor is also the president of Blacklock. And it's going to take me a few seconds to get this thing powered.
Labor Council for Latin American Advancement.
Thank you.
So many outlets.
There you are.
Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see everyone here. I'm going to specifically read Secretary and President Sanchez's statement, and then I'm going to add something to it as well. The Labor Council for Latin American Advancement supports global trade, but not at the expense of the American worker. Over the last 3 years, 2.7 million manufacturing jobs and 1.8 million private sector jobs have been lost due to outsourcing. LACLA understands that trade is vital for our industries and our livelihood. However, outsourcing is not the answer. LACLA supports legislation that pursues trade in a way that considers the rights of workers and the health of our communities while enforcing environmental protection laws. LACLA advocates for fair trade agreements and is opposed to trade policy that mainly serves corporate interests. LACLA is opposed to any agreements that will undermine the human and labor rights of workers abroad. Compliance with ILO international labor standards must be enforced and promoted among trading partners. LACLA stands firmly behind the Trade Reform, Accountability, Development, and Employment Act, introduced on June 4, 2008, and will advocate for its passage because the Trade Act addresses the American public's demand for change during the presidential campaign that President Barack Obama campaigned on, with a new way forward on trade and globalization, and what trade agreements must and must not include. The initiative sets forth what LACLA stands for: shutting down claims that labor and environment are anti-trade and have no alternative vision. Because we oppose the North American Free Trade Agreement, the Central America Free Trade Agreement, and the Central American Free Trade Agreement. Been supported twice. But I say this to say, and it was signed Victor Sanchez, the Central Florida Labor Council for Latin American Advancement chapter president, but he also serves as the secretary of the Central Florida AFL-CIO, which is the Central Labor Council for this area covering Orange, Lake, Seminole, and Osceola counties. What I wanted to add to this, and I think it's very important for us to know, Marjorie stated earlier the members of Congress that will have this legislation. Max Baucus is the chair of the Finance Committee in the Senate. Dave Camp is the chair of the Ways and Means Committee in the House. this means this affects your money directly. So when there isn't transparency, when you have a situation where constituents of members of Congress, or even members of Congress themselves, can't get access to the information that is being considered, this becomes a problem. Now, they learned from the North American Free Trade Agreement, and I can talk about that a little bit. I was a young staffer working for Congresswoman Karen Thurman when that legislation was being considered in 1996. She voted against it. She voted against it because of the unfair trade practice that was included in that legislation. But what we had then and what we don't have now is the kind of public input that was needed, where members of Congress could vote up or down with the information that they need. Many staffers and many members of Congress that were retiring and leaving back and forth, and just in full disclosure, I've worked for 3 different women members of the House of Representatives at 3 different times, from 3 different states. I'm not the only person in my immediate family that has worked for a member of Congress. My sister and my father have. When my dad did, he was the Deputy Staff Director for Governmental Affairs. My sister served in the House working for John Conyers when it was called the Government Operations Committee. My dad served when John Glenn was the chairman. And I say this all to say that when legislation comes through committee, real quick, the chairman's control it. The ranking members have say, but the chairman controls it. And one of the things that happened just with NAFTA, with GATT, and all these other kinds of trade agreements was that at that time the public had kind of input in on it. What they were afraid of is if they decided to kind of change things, fast track, get it involved, make it secretive, these kinds of things and these kinds of agreements would be rushed through. It has now come to pass. Because of threat of national security, it has now come to pass. Because as we even look in this room, there are so many different kinds of distractions at the congressional level, at the state legislative level, at the city council level, at the county commission level, to not have people involved. And this is what concerns any person who has any knowledge on anything that's being considered. It's the power of the people. One of the things that we put in place as formers is that I got involved with the release of information. At that time, the website was called Fed to You, but when it closed down, they said, you know what? We still believe in what we need to do. So nowadays, it's called opencrs.com. Specifically, if you want to know what a congressional member is reading, they go through 3 sources, namely Congressional Budget Office, Government Accountability Office, Congressional Research Service. Congressional Research Service works directly with the members of Congress and their staffs. If you want to know, opencrs.com has it. The reason why is there's a dedicated network of people who each and every day request these kinds of reports that CRS puts out in order to gain the information because, again, for some reason or another, they're trying to keep it secret. So if you go to opencrs.com and you just put in TPP as a search, the latest information that they have was updated in January. It's a 60-page report. That's all they're telling members of Congress. Again, opencrs.com, you can see it, you can read it. You can pull it up. Last update was in January. For many of us who have worked in Congress, either House or Senate, and know about this electronic check that we have, we know if it's not updated within 2 to 3 months, there's a problem. And again, with all the things that are going on right now, with the threat of government shutdown, with the split of one party controlling the House, the split with another party controlling the Senate, This is the distraction that is there. They're secretively meeting. They're using all these other kinds of things to hide it from you. So I commended Congressman Grayson when I saw him at the AFL-CIO convention, because he's taken leadership to do something about it. And I think specifically what has to be done is we have to talk outside of our normal audience. Now, how to do that, there are many ways. But I think before we leave here tonight, we need to figure that out, because it is too important. This legislation, this partnership, this agreement, as it all comes together, and I've seen a lot of different things, but this specifically is so far-reaching. It goes in so many different kinds of directions. I think it makes it more difficult than anything to specifically and simply explain it, which can be a problem when we're reaching the public. So I would suggest that the fact that the folks are holding out on the information, I would suggest that because this information is not transparent, this is initially what we do need to tell the public in our circles and outside of schools. Because there's something wrong with that, because they're using our public funds. Then as we go forward, let's talk about all the different concerns that everyone here and everyone outside of here has. But again, it is a far-reaching partnership. And again, I do believe that Wall Street is behind it, which scares the hell out of me. And I think we have to take the point of saying and identifying specifically what the next step shall be. I do appreciate your time.